Instructions matter. Your ability to define what the task is, what the do's and don'ts are for your particular task at hand was absolutely critical at getting good results back. Your instructions and those being clear and validating that clarity from other perspectives, it's paramount because you're not the one doing the task, you're just architecting it.
Welcome to LaunchPod, the show from LogRocket where we sit down with top product and digital leaders. Long before AI agent was the buzzword in every product discussion, Jula Dalton was already deep into solving the problems of coordinating thousands of worker agents, creating clear prompt instructions, and evaluating output quality. Julia is SVP of Product at the AI support automation platform Capacity. Previously, she helped scale workflow orchestration at OneSpace, formerly known as Crowdsource, where thousands of freelancers executed microtasks for major retailers. As it turns out, managing humans at scale and managing AI agents have a lot more in common than most people realize. In this episode, Julia shares the 2 failure modes that kill every AI agent before the model ever runs, why running a crowdsourced work platform gave her incredible insights into building effective agentic AI products, and how Julia and her team built an AI system to triage and prioritize product feedback, automating low complexity builds and helping make better decisions on high stakes trade-offs. So here's our episode with Julia Dalton. All right, Julia, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm looking forward to this one. So you're leading product at Capacity right now, but I think one thing that I was told to make everyone aware of is that if people navigate away from this episode too early, you're actually a fairly intimidating person when it comes to some of your capabilities. You're at one point a nationally ranked powerlifter.
So strongman, I used to compete in strongman competitions and competed nationally several years. And, as age gets to you, it's a little hard on the body. So I still actively train, but the competition bug it has waned a little bit in the last couple of years.
Yeah, listen to that, folks. Don't abandon the show too early, or else there's real consequences this go around. So you're at Capacity. You're running product. Maybe it's worth taking the 90 seconds of just like, how'd you get to where you are, and how did you end up kind of running a company with so many people you've worked with previously on the leadership team?
So, I've worked in startups throughout almost my entire career and seen them through various exit strategies. And so the earlier startups that I worked with, it was sort of a formative experience for a lot of us. We were in our early 20s, very eager, very much in that hustle culture, but also those formative years where you're navigating adult life, you're making friendships, and you're kind of doing so over work. And so there was a significant number of us who worked at a company called OneSpace, which started out as Crowdsource, that really sort of enjoyed working together, and we've kept in touch. And as we parted ways and each went into different startups, there's 5 of us now, including myself.
I'm just picturing a group of 20-somethings sitting around building a crowdsourced company, casually lifting cars. That's probably not an accurate representation.
No. I mean, at OneSpace, we took the work hard, play hard very seriously. So no, it actually isn't that far off to assume.
The other thing that was really neat that I want to talk about, and OneSpace actually brings it up perfectly because it started there, is everyone right now is talking about managing agents and how do you prompt better and how do you build context and how do you kind of delineate tasks and build agent swarms and all these kinds of things. But at most, aside from maybe a couple people at, some of the research hubs, there's people have a couple of years of experience. But at OneSpace, the entire product was based around kind of this crowdsourcing of work. So kind of wanted to dig into this idea of like the human API layer and how it's turned into what is probably a better understanding of agent behavior and how to manage agents now.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting thing when you realize that how relevant your experience and how applicable your experience can be even in a completely new wave of technology. For me, there's almost a direct parallel. So at OneSpace, which was rebranded from Crowdsource, but at fundamentally, when you think about how that company began, it was crowdsource.com. Our specialty was we worked with brands to help them essentially what was called microtasking back in the day. And let's use the example of retailers. Let's use that industry as an example. So we would work with a lot of retailers who not only had their own website, but were trying to deploy their products to Amazon or a Walmart or something like that. And they have large product catalogs. They need to get ranked. They need visibility. They need good quality product content. And one might think agency model, right? You just go and you take somebody and you say, okay, hey, you're responsible for all of this. You're the copywriter. You write all of the copy. But distributed work was way faster than, going through that typical agency route. And what we ended up finding out is, in order to effectively do microtasking at scale is you might simply think like, okay, somebody does the product images, then somebody writes all of the content. But there's a great deal of nuance and specialization that makes the quality bar go higher and higher. And so what we ended up finding was, we need somebody who focuses on and understands very innately how to optimize product titles, right? Then we need somebody who understands the purpose and point of those bullets and those product specification bullets and what needs to be included in there. And then we need somebody who really specializes in the product description content. And then obviously somebody who designs the images or picks the feature images and so on and so forth. So you can imagine you start to sort of break those things apart, and immediately you might be overwhelmed at like, okay, how do I organize all of these tasks? Because some might feed into the other. And so what we ended up building was, we called it workflow chains. We built a workflow platform. And what it allowed us to do is, even within, we called it workflow chains because it was actually workflows that were then also chained together. So even thinking about writing good product content, there's actually a writing step and an editing step in order to do that. So you think about the output of being something that's like, we want good quality product content. Well, within that mini workflow, we've got a writing step and then an editing step, and both of those are specialized. So we had to do this at scale. We're talking at any given time, thousands of freelancers that we've trained and qualified to do this work. And so there's a couple of very key parallels. One, instructions matter. Your ability to define what the task is, what the do's and don'ts are for your particular task at hand was absolutely critical at getting good results back. That is a hard lesson learned. That is why I'm laughing, because you cannot leave it up to chance, especially when you are diversifying it out and distributing it out to thousands of people.
Do you have an example from that? It sounds like there's...
I mean, just if you think about simply cost and the lessons learned of iterating, right? So you send out a batch of 500 product descriptions and your instructions are off, or they have an error, or you weren't clear enough. You've paid for 500 product descriptions, but now you've gotten them back and you can't use them. So you have to redo them. And so we actually, which again is another parallel, we actually had people who helped us optimize our tasks and help us work out those kinks, which is very similar to how you simulate agents today. And you do things like, how do you train an agent?
You had orchestration agents before the work agents. And because, I mean, it does make sense, right? Like if you got back work that met your criteria, it just didn't actually meet the real criteria, but it meant what you wrote was the criteria. I guess, how do you look at a task like that, or a kind of bigger, complex, maybe multi-stepped flow? And what was the process to kind of break it down into that? You had a good word for it, but like a task chain, or what was it?
Workflow chain?
Yeah.
It's a great question. It's the same kind of approach that one takes for designing conversation flows for agents, or where there is sort of an upfront design phase, right? And I don't mean graphic design. I mean, you're sitting down and you're kind of trying to understand the problem you're trying to solve. Now, because we specialized in certain industries, we certainly had templates, right? We had certainly, once we had gotten a really proven workflow chain flow for, product content for Amazon, because by the way, there's nuanced differences between deploying to Amazon and their requirements versus Walmart versus, name, insert any other big retailer that exists. And so there's that upfront design, and then obviously being able to reuse what works and having ability to deploy that quickly for new clients. But part of that is very similar to agent orchestration today. There were routing rules in between those workflow chains, which would say something to the effect of, if editing is done, if the editing step for here is done, route it to the product specification bullet phase. Or, if the images are done and the description is done, now we can go ahead and release the tasks for those bullet writers, because now they have the images that are focused on some of the key benefits and they've got the product content. And then usually the titles would be last, right? Because you would want to accrue all of that information. And so LLMs didn't exist then, so we couldn't use LLMs to surmise. So it was rigid conditional rules, which actually are still applicable in some ways for multi-agent architectures as well. But that logic of what goes to which step when is also very, very important to the end product, just as much as the task instructions are, because, incomplete information can also lead to really bad results.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because when I've gone through and worked with companies and people where, the kind of feedback is, oh, AI doesn't really do anything interesting. I gave this and got bad results out. Typically, if you look at it, it's an ill thought out task or ill-defined outcomes, or you weren't specific enough. I guess to tie it back to capacity, what you guys are doing is all about kind of AI agents at the communication level. There's lots of ways that can go south with seemingly clear direction. Have you found that this kind of like understanding you're coming in with has helped as you and the product org have really started to push this stuff forward more on the agent side?
Yes. I mean, the parallels are surprising to me. I wish I could go back and tell Julia 15 years ago, this is really, really important. You should really appreciate what it is that you're doing right now, because it's going to serve you very well in the future. There's a couple of things, right? What seems very clear to you, and this is not just specific to agents, this is in every realm of human existence. What seems clear to you and what you've communicated is oftentimes very unclear or not as clear as you thought to the audience or to the recipients. And it is even more critical when you're asking said agent or said person to execute a task where you're expecting a certain level of quality or a certain level of deliverable. And so it's not just, did I, from my own lens, come up with instructions or a prompt or something that I feel is very clear. It's the validation against other people's perspectives or other agents' perspectives to validate and harden that truth. So it's not enough to just sit there and stew by yourself and work on the prompt. Like, your ability to get feedback mechanisms, which is why I said back at OneSpace, we actually started to have like a sort of separate workflow that helped us validate our task UIs and our instructions, and getting that input. That was the exercise. It wasn't to execute the task. It was, if you were going to execute this task, your primary task though is to give us feedback on the instructions. If there's like one sort of takeaway, that same concept of validating, I mean, we'll get into the data, I think, later, but your data needs to be right. But aside from everything else, your instructions and those being clear and validating that clarity from other perspectives is just, it's paramount, because you're not the one doing the task, you're just architecting it.
Right. It seems like there's kind of two areas where these kind of workflows can fall down. One is just unclear instruction or unclear what great looks like. And the other is messy data or inaccessible data or data that somehow impinges upon the successful completion of the outcome you're looking for. If you can nail those two things in a really, really complete way, that seems like a huge amount of the battle that we can control. I don't know about you. We're not making our own models. So,
I mean, we do actually a little bit in the voice side, but generally speaking, large language models, that is not our core. There are companies that specialize, there are large companies that specialize in that. So,
all right. So since it kind of came up already, but I want to go back and dig into it just a little bit more. At OneSpace, the concept of you'd actually work with maybe kind of an example version of the workers to kind of go through and work through instructions. And now there's the corollary to people using agents to refine their prompts before they actually give the prompts to real agents. How do you build those now? Or what's the process that you found now where you're kind of using that to maybe recursively build that initial prompt to be better?
Yeah, it goes back to the specialization of understanding the task, right? So at OneSpace, we had people where we said, hey, this is your task. You know what the task that is being asked, but your task is to actually evaluate the instructions. You can build agents in the same way, right? So you can say, hey, agent, your task is not to do said prompt instructions of like, here is the prompt that we're trying to work through. Your job is to actually go through this sort of simulated conversation and simulated exercise of trying to execute said objectives. So you're a friendly support agent, and you have the ability to access these tools, but your primary responsibility is to answer questions about the company using your website as a resource. And let's just say that that's your initial prompt for whatever your chat agent is. It's largely insufficient of a prompt, but I'm just spitballing here. Putting a chatbot on your website with very loose instructions can be problematic, right?
Because to say the least.
Yeah. And so, what you want to be able to do is allow agents to sort of talk to agents. So where you have the agent who is the evaluator, who is able to talk to the agent that you're trying to deploy and run simulations and run evaluations. And then we also add humans to this. So we have clients, our own internal team, going through and doing, test runs and testing it. And then we have logging and ways to capture what's happening and evaluating how agents have performed against their prompt instructions. And we kind of are able to score them and identify where there might need to be refinement. So we've kind of got multiple layers where we're still adding people because we want the clients to feel comfortable. Our internal team have their own expertise, but you also can put an agent and have agents speak to each other, which, is always funny to me when I've been testing things where I'm actually having conversations with myself and I'm trying to test both sides of the conversation. It's much more effective when you have agents doing it. And then having that data collection layer that's actually sitting there and monitoring the conversations and understanding what's happening, and their primary purpose is to tell you, hey, this agent's prompt and instruction set said this. In the conversation, these things happened. It was either really well and it hit it as objective, or it didn't in these cases. And then obviously you can aggregate that and the team can use that to make adjustments. So really it's kind of a multifaceted approach for how you can validate it. But it's so important because even using something as simple as a chatbot on your website, it can be somewhat catastrophic if you do not have good instructions.
I mean, even within my own team, I've kind of run into people still, even if we're trying to create an image or text or almost anything, like running through people like, oh, I didn't get great results from this. I'm not really happy with how it came out. And you walk through the process, like, what'd you do? Well, I told it what I wanted it to do. You're like, well, there's your problem. You want to make an image. You got to go to this platform and tell it what you want, give it examples, tell it to spit out a prompt for this other platform. But also before it does that, say, ask all the questions that you need and push back, on it. And once you've kind of gone through that whole conversation, then you can go put it over there and maybe I've been doing this just playing around with ChatGPT's new image creator, because that thing's dope, by the way. I think it's incredible all of a sudden. But you get this really, really refined, super predictive, structured image, but it doesn't quite have exactly what you want. So you take the result back, throw it back into Claude and go, I got this. Here's what I want different, actually. And the back and forth is really what gets it done way, way faster and gets a, just exponentially higher output. But to that point, it's funny. I don't try to read a lot of academic papers out of the Frontier Labs just because I'm not qualified. Most of that goes right over. But there was an interesting one that came out talking about one of the best ways, just easy ways to get better output from any kind of prompt you're putting in, is to just take the results and re-give it the prompt and go, is this really right? Think about it and try again, recursive prompting.
I mean, our team is heavily instrumented with AI internally, right? In terms of our day-to-day. And if you're using Claude or anything like that, check your work. Hey, Claude, you came up with this plan. Can you go back and check your work? Can you go back and validate? Is this the right approach? Can you, I'm starting out as a skeptic almost. It's that adversarial sort of testing. It is really important because it just, once you lose the trust of the AI experience that you're trying to present, it's really, really difficult to climb back up that hill.
Yeah, it is. It can be for individual team members. I definitely found anyone who's a skeptic, one bad output. It's the same as almost any tool in general. People are very quick if it's something new to want to be like, nah, it doesn't really work. It's not as good. There's usually enough people like that.
Mhm.
But it is, almost every process I build in Claude now has some level of recursivity to it,
Mhm.
where it's basically like, once you finish, go back and compare it to what we said was important. And does it do that? Or like, it's 2 or 3 skills, or, do this 5 times and then go through and pick the best one and pick the one that matches best. And then why do the other ones not do that? Why do the other ones do? So prompting and instructions is clearly really important. But the other end, we kind of alluded to quickly, is how do you actually have data structured in a way that's useful? How do you can tell them what to do in excruciating detail, but if they don't have access to all the context and input that they need to do that, it doesn't really matter. So I know that this has been an issue that you've looked at closely and worked heavily on, especially at capacity as of late. So like, how do you kind of set that up for success, and what does that actually mean, like having the data structured well?
Yeah, so I'll use in 2 parallels. One for like customer facing agents, which is the core competency of what capacity delivers to the market. And we think about it as, we call it our knowledge orchestration layer. That's what's important. Like anybody can hook API endpoints up to an LLM and call it an agent. And like, that's great for you, but that's not where like the real power lives. It's like, it's powerful and it can be incredibly useful, but it can also be incredibly dangerous. And so one of the core like foundational parts of our product is our ability to go out and get that context layer, whether it lives in Google Drive or SharePoint, or you think of, name any sort of data source, your own company's proprietary repository, whether it's in GitHub or any of these other sort of knowledge sources that are typically where people store their knowledge. Capacity has tooling and has products that are really, really good at going out and getting that information. So you don't have to move your context layer from where it is. We're really good at going out and accessing it from where it is. And then internally, right, when you're instrumenting your team or you're trying to help product management, we face our own challenges of I call it the fire hose of inputs. You get so many requests for products throughout the system, and how do you solve that challenge? And so in both of those cases, whether your data lives in SharePoint or in Salesforce or in your database for your product usage data, AI only amplifies the data. So if your data is wrong, it's going to amplify its wrongness in a major way. If it's good, it's going to deliver and amplify those good results. And so you can have the best instructions on the planet, the best prompt, but if your data is wrong, you're going to get really, really terrible results. And so, we talked a bit about like how important it is to sit down and architect the conversation flow and the designs and the instructions. But like, you should start way earlier about perfecting or doing a manicure on your data set. So that data work and that validating the data that you're getting and you're using is, we didn't talk about it earlier, but that usually has to start a little bit sooner. You can build an agent very, very quickly. It takes longer to make sure the data is sound.
When we talked before, you mentioned like the fire hose of product. I would assume capacity is no different from any other company, where the number of people talking to product and asking product for things probably is exponentially higher than the number of product people you have.
Yes. It's like a 10% ratio usually. My product team is vastly smaller than the teams who submit the requests.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at everyone who's submitting, it might not even be 10%, it might be smaller. I don't know. Here it is. Here it's way smaller than that. But I love you came up with this kind of PRP project that you built yourself. Can we talk about that? Because I thought this was super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I built the app myself, but it was a heavy, heavy collaboration with our customer success team. We have some really strong CS team leads. And all of it, though, was with this mutual goal of how does the CS team, how are they able to submit feature requests, bugs on behalf of clients, but also just by the very nature that they're also some of our biggest users, in a way that is structured, right? That they're able to triage, right? So if you think about the problem, even within the customer success organization, one individual customer support person might think that this is a high priority item. So when they log it as high priority. But in reality, we have 50 other things that are of substantially larger impact. And so one problem we tried to solve is that product can't be the triager of that internal prioritization between CS. And so we built a triage step within our own CS team where our own CS leaders kind of evaluate those requests coming in. But the end goal really was we have a significant number of requests that are coming in from our customer success team. We rolled it out to our revenue team last quarter. And there's a lot of information that we need to be able to like auto triage it, auto classify it. And so we built structured intake forms. So what I built in the weekend was the UI layer, right? The thing that presented all of it. But there was definitely work that went into, okay, we need structured inputs. We need clients need to be in Salesforce in this particular way. They need to be vitally, and data that feeds into vitally needs to be structured this way. And I validated a lot. The number of times where I looked at things and I said, is this matching this? We needed our product usage data in there. But once we had the data pieces in there, in the right inputs in Jira, which is the tool we use to log those tickets, then the problem that I was trying to solve is, okay, if we have this fire hose of feedback, and now it's feedback that we have signals, validated signals coming from different platforms that we can layer onto the initial request. So you can tag what client or clients are impacted in, and that gives us the ability to go pull additional information. Now I have a system that can go through, take those requests and auto classify, auto triage as an algorithm that, puts the ARR impact, the retention impact on it, and sort of weights it. And so it gives my product team the ability to focus on, instead of a fire hose, now we've got a slow, steady stream of really important things for us to go triage and take through and think through and collaborate on. And then we've got those mid to low things can get put into a workflow that can get, into our AI-driven development workflows to go and kind of handle some of those things because they don't necessarily need the same level of care. But what we also found, though, is that by tying all that information together, is that now we can understand the impact of what we're delivering to. So it doesn't just help on the prioritization, it helps for understanding the ROI of the deliverable. So now we can, in the same mechanisms that we use to prioritize what surfaces to the top, it also helps us from a product and then even down into the engineering realm, communicating to them the impact that they're making by releasing some of these features or fixing these bugs.
Yeah. No, I mean, because it's easy at some level to just collect all the feedback, right?
You have a big backlog. What do you do in that backlog?
Yeah. And that's been the history of product forever and why you started to see all sorts of frameworks coming out for like, how do you apply some kind of logic to this? But there's always going to be a million things to work on and only like 10 things you could do at once.
Yes.
And what I love about this is the ability to kind of, what do we actually need to work on? Like, how do we do that in a smart, structured way and take in all these different people who all think their thing is number one? Because, I mean, if I'm a customer success person and I see one of my big customers having any complaint at all, like that's my number one priority because I don't want that person to churn. I'm probably going to overvalue the chance that they churn, but also like that's money in my pocket. But like you said, there's probably 10 priorities that can play into that. And how do we kind of weigh all that against each other and then just see everything?
There's also the signal of, you have one client that has 5 or 10 feature requests or 5 or 10 things that are really impacting their retention versus one client who has maybe one issue. Those are all sort of signals that you're able to evaluate and say, okay, this client has 50 things that they've logged that they've said they're essentially what changed or unhappy with. They're weighting their retention risk is you've got more structured input that you can use to help, as opposed to things kind of getting stuck in anecdotal calls or feelings or gut checks. You've got hard data that you can look at now.
An interesting thing we found is we kind of gained kind of capability in our Galileo AI layer is as we're able to kind of watch the sessions and process and understand what's important. One thing was seeing customer feedback from support tickets and stuff like that and seeing someone complain, but being able to take that, match that to the actual session that they complained in or brought an issue. And did that same thing affect 100 or 1,000 other people?
Yep.
And did it have the same negative impact, or did like 1,000 other people see that issue and just they didn't care? Like, how big of an issue is this maybe beyond what we even can diagnose from just this base level of data? I love it though, because it's taking this way of how do you take these tools and actually do something beyond like, oh, cool, we wrote kind of product doc or some kind of like specifications doc here, but we actually are systematically moving the entire product and engineering and kind of build side of the company forward faster in a more meaningful, impactful way by being able to use the capabilities that these things are great at: parsing data, categorizing, pulling in context, but still using, the instruction layer and stuff, like you said, where the humans are going to be really important. You guys are doing really cool stuff over there. I gotta say, Julia,
It's exciting.
I feel like I
I'm
learned a
enjoying
lot
it.
about this. Yeah. No, this has been a great kind of lesson on how to think through agent instruction architecture and kind of job chaining and all that kind of stuff. That I think if you're building agents doing complex things, these are the things you need to think about. And if you're
Mhm.
not, you're going to have a very disappointing product.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming. This is really, really interesting to learn all this and see people actually kind of putting the structured thought into this. Love to catch up, hopefully down the road and see how things continue to go. And as this, I think we're only going to go deeper down this road. So hopefully we can stay in touch.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Julia. It was great to see you. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.